A Columbian mammoth could weigh as much as a small truck and move faster than you can sprint. So how did people armed with pointed sticks ever bring one down without getting flattered? The answer has almost nothing to do with bravery, and almost everything to do with a plan. The humans who hunted mammoths were not muscle-bound heroes charging headfirst at a wall of fur and tusks. They were patient, clever, and working as a team. And the more archaeologists dig, the more that heroic charge picture falls apart. So let's follow one small band and find out what really kept them alive. North America, about 13,000 years ago. The air is cold and dry. Grasslands rolled to the horizon, dotted with animals that would look impossible today. Giant ground sloths, dire wolves, and elephants called Columbian mammoths. Some stood more than 11 feet tall at the shoulder and weighed several tons. Living out here is a small band of people archaeologists call Clovis, named after the town in New Mexico where their tools were first found. They have no metal, no wheels, no farms. What they carry are stone-tipped spears, a sharp knowledge of the land and each other. Winter is coming, and the band needs meat. Not a rabbit, not a handful of frozen berries. They need a mountain of food that will last for months. And out on the plain stands exactly that, 6 tons of it, calmly chewing grass, completely unbothered by the tiny figures watching from the ridge. So here is the obvious idea. Grab a spear, run up, and stab it. That sounds like a great plan until you remember the other side weighs as much as a pickup truck and can outrun a person without trying. A mammoth's tusks could be longer than a grown man is tall. Its skull was thick, its hide was tough, and its ribs sat across its chest like a wooden fence, guarding everything a spear would actually need to reach. Get too close to a big male, especially one in a hormonal state called must that made bull elephants dangerous and short-tempered, and you were not a hunter anymore, you were a sneer on the grass. Even the weapons argue against the brave frontal attack. For years, people assumed Clovis hunters used a spear thrower called an atlal, a stick that flings a dart with tremendous force. But a recent study points out something awkward. We have never actually found a Clovis atwell, and the oldest confirmed ones in the Americas appear thousands of years later. Researchers still debate this, but it is possible these mammoth hunters did not even have that long-range weapon. So if you cannot safely attack from a distance, and you definitely cannot win a shoving match, what do? You stop fighting fair. The evidence suggests the real trick was choosing. You did not attack the strongest animal in the herd. You watched, and you picked the one that could not fight back well, the very young, the very old, the sick, or one that had wandered a little too far from the group. A single animal on its own is a target. A whole herd standing together is a wall. Then you chose the ground, and this is where it gets clever. Instead of meeting 6 tons on flat open land where all that weight and speed worked in the mammoth's favor, hunters used places where size turned into a trap. In Mexico, near a place called Tultepec, archaeologists found 2 deep pits packed with the bones of around 14 mammoths. The evidence there suggests people may have driven mammoths into pits, using the animal's own weight against it, though researchers still discuss exactly how deliberate those traps were. At another site, in Wyoming, hunters seem to have pushed mammoths into a narrow gully where they became stuck in mud. A creature that can crush you on solid ground is suddenly helpless when its legs sink and it cannot run around. And the spear may have been smarter than a plain sharp stick. One recent experiment suggests hunters sometimes braced the back end of the spear against the ground and angled the point upward so a charging animal drove itself onto the blade. The mammoth's own momentum did the damage. The researchers compared the wound it created to a modern hollow point bullet. As one archaeologist put it, the goal was not to use your own strength to kill the animal. It was to get the animal to kill itself. Now here is where honest science gets interesting, because not everyone agrees this was even hunting. A few years ago, one team argued that Clovis stone points simply could not punch deep enough through a mammoth's thick hide and fat to reach the organs. In their view, people mostly scavenged mammoths that were already dead and used the sharp points as butchering knives. Other researchers pushed back hard. They noted that hunters armed with nothing but spears have taken down elephants in modern times, and that many Clovis points show impact damage from slamming into something solid. Archaeologists still debate how often these people hunted versus scavenged, but one piece of evidence settles the biggest question. Over in Poland, at a site called Krakow Spadzista, archaeologists uncovered the remains of more than 100 mammoths, and buried inside one mammoth's rib was the broken tip of a flint spear point. That was a woolly mammoth, a smaller cold-adapted cousin killed around 25,000 years ago, half a world away from our Clovis band. But it proves the core fact beyond any argument. A stun point does not end up lodged in a rib by accident. Humans really did drive weapons into living mammoths, and it was not a once-in-a-lifetime event either. Scientists recently studied the chemistry locked in the bones of a Clovis baby found in Montana, which reflected what his mother had been eating. The result was striking. Mammoth made up around 40% of her diet. Other large animals like elk and bison made up most of the rest, while small animals barely registered at all. These people were not nibbling mammoth as a rare treat. Giant animals were the main thing on the menu. So here is the answer the title is really asking for. They avoided getting crushed because the spear was never the clever part. The clever part was everything that happened before the spear, choosing the weak animal instead of the strong one, choosing the mud or the pit instead of the open plain, waiting for the right moment, moving as a group so that no single person ever had to stand alone in front of a charging mountain. The mammoth's greatest strengths, its size and weight and power, were exactly the things the hunters turned into weaknesses, and the reward was enormous. At that Wyoming site, hunters appear to have butchered the mammoths and stacked the meat to freeze in the cold, then walked away and returned to the frozen pile when they needed it. They had figured out a natural freezer thousands of years before anyone invented a refrigerator. One good hunt could carry a whole band through the darkest, hungriest part of winter. So think back to our small band on that cold plain, staring at 6 tons of food that could easily kill them. They lived not because one hero was brave enough to charge, but because the whole group knew things. Someone knew which animal in the herd was weak. Someone knew where the ground turned soft. Someone knew how to angle a spear, how to read the herd's mood, how to save the meat before it spoiled. Take away any one of them, and the whole plan grew more dangerous. Their real weapon was not stone. It was a group in which different people remembered different things. We know they made the tools. We know they left them inside Mammoth Bone. We are still arguing about the exact moves of the hunt itself, but the big picture is clear. The first mammoth hunters did not beat the giants with muscle. They beat them with patience, teamwork, and a very good sense of where not to stand. Subscribe for more Ice Age stories.